Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. MyPillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome into today's show. Appreciate you spending some of your day with me. Here's what we're going to talk about today, get you up to date. It was a wild day in the financial markets yesterday with stocks surging after the U.S. and China agreed to roll back tariffs for at least a 90-day period. And pharmaceutical companies saw their stock prices rise after President Trump signed an executive order aiming to slash drug prices, too. We have all the details of these two stories in today's show. A federal judge will allow the IRS to share illegal alien data with Department of Homeland Security in the Trump administration's crackdown on illegal immigration. This was a rare win in the courts for the Trump administration. Edan Alexander, a 21-year-old dual U.S. Israeli citizen, was received by a specialized Israeli Defense Forces unit and was taken to an initial reception facility and then reunited with his family yesterday. After 19 months, he was seen holding a sign reading, "Thank you, President Trump," upon his release. And President Trump says he's thinking about joining Ukraine talks in Turkey if he thinks it will help.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Stock surged yesterday after the U.S. and China agreed to roll back tariffs for a 90-day trial period. The Dow Jones Industrial rose 1,160 points, gaining 2.81%. This exiting what is considered the correction territory. The S&P 500 climbed 3.2%, and the NASDAQ composite rose 4.35%, again exiting bear market territory. The tariffs President Donald Trump announced against China back in April are being cut by 24 percentage points for this temporary period while retaining the remaining ad valorem rate of 10% from that announcement, according to a joint statement between the two negotiators. China agreed to the same stipulations, adding that it will adopt all necessary administrative measures to suspend or remove the non-tariff countermeasures taken against the United States since April the 2nd, according to the announcement. Under the deal, reciprocal tariffs for both countries would be reduced by 115%. The U.S. will temporarily lower its tariffs on Chinese goods from 145% to 30%, and China will reduce its levies on American products from 125% to 10%. This is certainly a move in the right direction. We'll see. We'll see where the permanent tariffs end up. And as promised, President Trump yesterday signed an executive order to encourage domestic prescription drug manufacturing and to cut down on the time it takes to approve U.S. pharmaceutical plants. Under the order, the Food and Drug Administration is directed to eliminate unnecessary requirements, streamline reviews, and work with domestic drug makers to provide early support before facilities come online. This is one of the things that Trump is best at, cutting through the red tape, eliminating the red tape in so many areas. Let these drug manufacturers do what they do, and that's manufacture drugs so that the prices will come down. The president also instructed the agency to increase inspection fees for foreign manufacturing plants, improve the enforcement of active ingredient source reporting by foreign producers, and consider publicly listing facilities that fail to comply. During a news conference at the White House, the president said things are going to be done a little bit differently now.
Why doesn't somebody fight the drug price situation, meaning equalization? There's a term. It's called equalization. Nobody wants to mention that term. And I'm not knocking the drug companies. I'm really more knocking the countries than the drug companies because they're forced to do things. But the drug lobby is the strongest lobby in this country, they say, the drug lobby. It's between that and lawyers. And they have a lot of power. But starting today, the United States will no longer subsidize the health care of foreign countries, which is what we were doing. We're subsidizing others' health care. Countries where they paid a small fraction of what, for the same drug, that what we pay many, many times more for. And we'll no longer tolerate profiteering and price gouging from Big Pharma. But again, it was really the countries that forced Big Pharma to do things that, frankly, I'm not sure they really felt comfortable doing. But they've gotten away with it, these countries. European Union has been brutal. And the drug companies actually told me stories. It was just brutal how they forced them.
Now, you want to know the odd part of this? The pharmaceutical companies seem to oddly like the news. As Pfizer, Merck, Eli Lilly, and Novo Nordisk shares rallied after the president made his announced plan to lower prescription drug prices for American citizens by as much as 90%. Now, you would think the opposite, wouldn't you? You would think that if the president had just signed an executive order to decrease drugs, to mandate basically that drug companies, pharmaceutical companies, would charge Americans the same prices they charge other countries. You'd think that stocks would go down. But they liked it. Trump said during the conference yesterday, the United States will no longer subsidize the health care of foreign countries, which is what we're doing. We're subsidizing others, and he's right. He explained that countries were paying a small fraction of the price as the U.S. for the same drug here. Now, there's concern, like other executive orders, that this one could be challenged in the courts. We'll see. But look, if the pharmaceutical companies seem to be happy with it, if their stocks rallied, they're the most likely source to challenge this in court, right? Maybe it won't be. The Trump team, though, have railed against federal judges, as you know, over these past few months for blocking key executive orders, accusing the so-called activist judges of overstepping their authority, blocking him from delivering on some of his top policy priorities, primarily in the immigration field. Some of Trump's most sweeping executive orders have been blocked or paused by federal courts to allow for a full hearing on the merits of the case. But the system of checks and balances also means these rulings can be reviewed, either through appeals to the Supreme Court or by the U.S. Congress, which has the power to pass laws or expand certain executive branch authorities. They can actually take an executive order and turn it into law if they choose to do so. It's all part of an expressly designed system of government that is supposed to afford each branch, including the presidency, plenty of options for review. That's what our system is based on. Checks and balances. The framers made clear that no one in our system of government was meant to be king, the president included, and not just in name only. U.S. District Court Judge Beryl Howell of the District of Columbia said in a ruling earlier this year, and we've heard that a number of times from these judges. They're targeting Donald Trump because they think that he's overstepping their boundaries. So what do? They overstep their boundaries. They issue national restrictions from a district court. That doesn't mean, though, that Trump doesn't have options and how he could seek to push back against the wave of court actions. You know, I don't know this to be for sure, but I suspect that Donald Trump has been sued and has had injunctions against his orders more than any president in history. Maybe that's something I need to do a little research on. I'm sure that it's out there somewhere. Since taking office, Trump's executive orders have been challenged by hundreds of lawsuits in these federal courts. Plaintiffs have sought to block the dismantling of certain federal agencies, to restore board heads. The inspectors general who have been fired by Trump, they've sought to get their jobs back, and to restrict the access of the Trump administration, particularly Elon Musk's government efficiency agency. They don't like the fact that DOJ has been snooping around in their agencies. But like the groups filing the lawsuits, we have to understand that the Trump administration also has the ability to appeal any lower court decisions that it views as unfavorable or going beyond their scope. And that's what he's done. He has not hesitated to go to this to the appeal court or to the U.S. Supreme Court to get some relief. The problem with that is it slows the process down and it costs money. You and I are paying for that. All these legal fights, our tax dollars are paying for it. These federal judges, they can write out their order on a cheap piece of paper, and it can cost us thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, and probably millions of dollars overall for our president, the man we elected to do just what he's doing, to try to carry out his promises, his campaign promises. In the interim, the Trump administration can seek an emergency stay to restore the executive order, which, by the way, a little later in the show, he did win one yesterday. So stick around. I've got the details of that. It was a big win too. The Supreme Court has agreed to allow the executive order to go into effect pending the suit, which is good. The Supreme Court has sided with Trump in removing 2 federal board members that it had hired earlier this year, and which a lower court had reversed. Last week, the Supreme Court lifted a lower court order that paused Trump's ban on transgender military members from taking effect, allowing his order and related policies to proceed as planned. So there are some good things happening. Lots of good things. Are you ready for this? I dropped over 30 pounds on the PhD weight loss plan. No Ozempic, no shots, no meds. Look, I refuse to rely on prescriptions for life, and you probably feel the same. Joey Hudson here. Here's what Big Pharma won't tell you. Your body already makes GLP-1. That's the hormone that fights hunger. PhD helps your body produce it naturally, faster, and without side effects. With PhD, there's no muscle loss, no rebound weight gain, and no cravings. Just real, lasting weight loss the natural way. Right now, get a free body scan and personalized metabolic assessment. It takes 5 minutes and shows what's really happening inside your body. You'll walk out knowing how to flip your fat-burning switch. No shots needed. Don't trade your health for a quick fix. You can do this without Big Pharma and without the drugs. Plus 15% off when you fully commit to your program and the PhD Get Results Guarantee. Call now 864-644-1900. Start today. Call 864-644-1900 or visit myphdweightloss.com. A federal judge sided with the Trump administration yesterday in denying an injunction that would prevent the Department of Homeland Security and the Internal Revenue Service from partnering to help remove some of the illegals. I got that story for you just a little later in the show. Hamas released its last living American hostage yesterday after he had spent more than 580 days in captivity inside the Gaza Strip. It was big news. It was a joyful reunion. Edan Alexander, he's 21 years old. He is a dual U.S. Israeli citizen. He was received by a specialized Israel Defense Forces unit and was brought to an initial reception facility where he was scheduled to undergo preliminary medical and psychological evaluation by Israel Defense Forces, their medical corps. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in a statement, said, "This is a very emotional moment. Edan Alexander has returned home. We embrace him and we embrace his family. This was achieved thanks to our military pressure and the diplomatic pressure applied by President Trump. That combination is a winning formula." And yes, it is. President Trump, following Alexander's release, wrote on Truth Social, "Congratulations to his wonderful parents, family, and friends." The brigades have just released the Israeli soldier holding American citizenship, Edan Alexander, following communications with the U.S. administration. This was part of the statement from Hamas, saying, "This comes as part of the mediators' efforts to reach a ceasefire, open the border crossings, and allow the entry of aid and relief for our people in Gaza, in the Gaza Strip." I would say they're feeling the pressure. Wouldn't you? In an update, the IDF said that Alexander, accompanied by members of his family, was making his way onto an Israeli Air Force helicopter to a hospital where he was reunited with other members of his family, and there he will receive medical treatment. It's just amazing. This young man, 580 days. Who knows how he was treated? Yael Alexander is his mom. An image posted by the White House showed Alexander in the aircraft holding a handwritten note reading, "Thank you, President Trump." Following his release, his mom spoke with her son over a phone handed to her by Steve Witkoff, the U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East. He is proven to be a key player in the Trump administration. His very happy mother said, Eden, you're out. My love, you're safe. That's it. It's over now. I'm here waiting for you. She said, they just released a photo of you. You look unbelievable. Wow, you look beautiful. I love you so much. I love you, and I'm going to see you soon. Wow, that just really warms your heart, doesn't it? And to know that this was done because of the strength that President Donald Trump has shown these terrorists. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that Trump is fighting to secure the release of every American detained abroad. And he says, we won't stop until this conflict is over and all our hostages are home. As news spread of his release, a crowd that gathered in Alexander's hometown of Tenafly, New Jersey, erupted into applause. Sue Gelsey, the interim CEO of Kaplan JCC on the Palisades, told Fox News an estimated 3,000 had gathered in downtown Tenafly, some arriving as early as 5 a.m. yesterday morning, waiting for the release. And they released some just wonderful photos of young Alexander meeting with his extended family. Trump was slated to depart Washington, D.C. yesterday to visit Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. He said prior to Alexander's release that it was great news. Netanyahu held a meeting Monday with Trump's special envoy, Mr. Witkoff, and also U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. Netanyahu then called Trump today and thanked him for his assistance in securing Alexander's freedom. I mean, this is how a plan comes together. When you work with your allies and you show that strength, this is what happens. And as a IDF soldier, Alexander was also will be provided with a comprehensive support framework, including medical, psychological, logistical assistance that will be facilitated by Israeli Defense Forces. Hamas first claimed on Sunday that it would release Alexander. Alexander's mother at the time said that she was feeling such sadness and agony not knowing what the fate of her son was. She said, I've not been able to sleep. I'm stuck on October the 7th, even though it's been 580 days. She said, I used to enjoy Mother's Day so much. We'd all go to the city to a special restaurant, and I assisted the kids write me letters on this day. I've not been able to celebrate anything since this nightmare began. And it would be hard, wouldn't it? I can't imagine what it would be like to have a loved one, and particularly a mother, having her young son held like this, not knowing day to day how he's being treated. Alexander was raised in Tenafly, New Jersey. He moved to Israel when he was 18 to volunteer for military service in the IDF's Golani Brigade. He lived with his grandparents in Tel Aviv and at a kibbutz Hazor, where he was part of a group of lone soldiers. He was kidnapped on the morning of October 7th. It was a Saturday, as you may recall, when he wasn't required to remain on the base. His mother was visiting from abroad, and like many soldiers, he had the option to go home for the weekend. He chose to stay, not wanting to leave his fellow soldiers short-staffed on guard duty. That turned out to be a bad decision. The mother of hostage Yonatan Samarano said that the previous day was Mother's Day and how around the world mothers celebrated their children. A lot of parents. Has to be agony. Again, it was just classic. If you haven't seen the image of him standing there holding the "Thank You, President Trump" sign, you need to look it up. He was seen laughing as he was reunited with his younger brother during the airlift to the hospital in Tel Aviv. It is when he asked for supplies and was able to make the sign. The note also shouted out to the Golani 51 Battalion that Alexander was deployed with when he was kidnapped. Mediators had advised Hamas that Alexander's prompt release would be seen as a gesture of goodwill towards Trump, who, of course, is, again, traveling in the region later this week. Hamas said that the release, with no additional conditions attached, should pave the way for a ceasefire negotiation with Israel and help establish an end to the war. I think they're finally got the message, haven't they? I think they have. The Iran-backed terror group has 58 hostages in custody still, about 23 of whom are still believed to be alive. There could be fewer hostages alive. We don't know yet. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu admitted last week that 3 more hostages could be dead. Now, that would just be agony, too. If you're a parent, if you're a wife, a husband, although I think all females have been released, haven't they? I think it's all males. But just not knowing if your loved one is even alive, not knowing their condition. They're savages over there, just savages. Wow. Things got kind of interesting on the world stage yesterday as President Trump dropped a bit of a bombshell, saying that he's thinking about going on to Turkey for possible peace talks between Ukraine and Russia, and taking the art of the deal with him. Now, if it happens, it would be the first direct sit-down between Ukraine and Russia since way back in 2022 when this brutal war kicked off. Tens of thousands dead, millions displaced, Russia still holding on to about 20% of Ukraine's territory, including Crimea. I mean, it's just a mess. And Trump says it's time to start cleaning it up. Here's what he said to reporters before heading to the Middle East as he was boarding Air Force One, I guess. He says, I'm thinking that about actually flying over there. There's a possibility of it, I guess, if I think things can happen. If he thinks things can happen, folks, that's classic Trump. He doesn't waste his time unless there's a shot at making a real deal. So I think that's his way of kind of sending a message to both Zelensky and Putin saying, hey, guys, if you're really serious about a deal this time, let me know and I'll come. Otherwise, don't waste our time. Now, Ukrainian President Zelensky, he's already RSVP'd saying yes. He said he'd meet with Putin personally in Turkey. He even talked to Erdogan about it. Zelensky seems ready, but here's the kicker. He wants a ceasefire first. May not happen. May not happen like that. Trump, on the other hand, has been pushing for direct talks without waiting around. Yesterday, he urged Ukraine to go to the table now, saying it's the only way to figure out where Putin's, whether or not he's really serious. And let's be real. The longer this drags on, the more people die, the more money's burned, and the worse it gets. But if anybody can solve it, Donald Trump's the man. Okay, I've been mentioning throughout the morning that the Trump administration had a win yesterday in a federal court. So here's the story. A federal judge denied an injunction request that would have prevented the Department of Homeland Security and the Internal Revenue Service from partnering to permit U.S. Customs and Immigration Enforcement, ICE, to access taxpayer information to locate illegal immigrants subject to deportation. This is a major, major win. The order by the U.S. District Judge Dabney Friedrich came after a lawsuit by Centro de Trabajadores Unidos, I think that's right, which is an immigrants' right AIDS group, and they had filed suit against Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, trying to prevent him from releasing this data. Friedrich wrote in his order, at its core, this case presents a narrow legal issue. Does the Memorandum of Understanding between the IRS and DHS violate the Internal Revenue Code? It does not. It's pretty clear. No room for interpretation. An earlier Memorandum of Understanding between DHS and the IRS outlines a process that will ensure that sensitive taxpayer data information is protected while allowing law enforcement to pursue criminal violations. A senior Treasury Department official said at the time of the deal that was reached back in April that this is how they can work together for the good of everybody. The Treasury Department is committed to protecting the privacy of law-abiding taxpayers, but a criminal exception obligates the agency to assist law enforcement, an official told Fox News. The ideal would allow ICE to submit the names and addresses of illegal immigrants to the IRS, who could then cross-check their immigrants' tax records and provide the immigration agency with current address information. Now, of course, you're always going to run the chance that maybe they have moved on and the address is not current. And look, as word gets out that the IRS is working with DHS and with ICE, they may just stop filing. Who knows? But for the time being, this could be really helpful in locating some of these people. The court agrees that requesting and receiving information for civil enforcement purposes would constitute a cognizable injury, but none of the organizations have established that such an injury is imminent, the order states. As the plaintiffs acknowledge, the memorandum only allows sharing information for criminal investigations. As the memorandum provides, its purpose is to establish procedures enabling requests for addresses of persons subject to criminal investigation. The agreement, of course, comes as President Trump has continued to ramp up the deportation efforts that he promised in last year's campaign. Now, in other immigration news, Immigration and Customs Enforcement and removal officers in Houston arrested 422 suspected illegal immigrants during a week-long operation. You know, even though the courts at every turn is trying to stop Tom Homan and the Trump administration from deporting the illegals, they're not slowing down as far as apprehending them. They're still carrying out these enforcement actions to round up people, the worst of the worst, and to have them ready as soon as the courts allow deportations. There's going to be a boatload of people ready to go. We're told that during the operation, ICE officers targeted some of the most dangerous criminals, including an illegal migrant wanted in Colombia on murder. And these are the types of people that the Democrats are trying to protect. You got a murderer from Colombia, and Democrats would argue that the Trump administration should not be trying to find him and round him up and deport him. Fox News exclusively embedded with officers for 10 hours as ICE agents arrested an illegal alien they say is wanted for murder in Colombia at his apartment complex after being tipped off. ICE Houston Director Brett Bradford. And, you know, something needs to be said about this, that the Houston authorities cooperated with this. He said that he has a homicide conviction in Colombia and was sentenced to 21 years there. So he's been found guilty, convicted of murder, sentenced, and he fled. He came here, and we've been protecting him. According to the ICE director, he entered the United States illegally in February of 2024, was given a court date for an immigration hearing, and released. Now, think about that. We had a murderer from Colombia presented themselves to the Biden administration. He was given a court date and released, like he was going to return for that court date. Of course, he didn't show up. So in March of this year, he was ordered removed by an immigration judge here in the United States. They've been looking for him ever since. ICE Director Bradford said, the biggest thing for me is public safety. And that's it. We don't need these people. We don't need murderers, convicted murderers, running on our streets. Here's a breakdown of the 422 arrests. 262 have criminal convictions from their country or from the U.S. 34 have pending convictions. 126 have other immigration violations, and 229 had final orders of removal. So 229 had already been told, you got to get out of here. And they're hiding out. Another illegal alien removed during the operation was a 72-year-old migrant from Mexico who was ordered removed from the U.S. in 2018 and has been convicted of homicide, robbery, shoplifting, and assault. Wow. And again, I'm sure the Democrats would try to protect him. The Democrats are saying that we shouldn't deport them. During the operation, a 40-year-old twice deported criminal alien from Mexico was seen trying to flee in his vehicle, and then he got out and ran on foot before he was eventually captured. According to ICE, Hector Castillo Garcia was convicted of several charges while in the U.S. illegally, including arson, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and driving while intoxicated. He could have been out there driving drunk and could have killed one of your loved ones. The Houston ICE field office has an operations center with an analyst dedicated to developing these targets. They're going through their records, and this is why this IRS case is so important, because that's just another tool. As they have a long list of these people who came in during the Biden administration, only to be released within our country, did not show up for their court date. Now we got to find them. Any tool that the federal government has to try to locate, to establish where they are so that these ICE agents can pick them up and have them ready to be deported, we need to take advantage of. Director Bradford said they're doing the database research to get the worst of the worst, the ones who have the most significant threat to public safety. And then we want to look at the information we have on that individual, make sure it's a viable target, make sure we have good addresses, go out and do surveillance so that we can see if we can develop a pattern of the subject's movement and their behavior. So we want to kind of combine the worst of the worst plus the ones we have the most likelihood of encountering and arresting, trying to merge those two things together to come up with our top targets. And boy, it sounds like they were very successful in picking up 422. ICE is also ramping up its efforts to remove illegal migrants by swiftly transferring those with final removal orders to designated hubs where they are deported immediately to their home countries, they say. The director said that the hub and spoke system, which speeds up the removal process, has just started recently, according to ICE officials. Now, I'm sure some federal judge will want to try to stop it, but we'll see. Again, Tom Holman and his crew, they're not being intimidated by these federal judges. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. Now that we have reorg behind us, as we discussed last week, and with me today on our guest line, Chairman of the South Carolina Republican Party, Drew McKissick. Welcome, Mr. Chairman.
Good to be with you, sir. I hope you're staying dry this morning.
Try my best. As we discussed last week, we're now focusing on the 2026 midterm elections. We have reorg behind us. One of the issues that I've heard about the most since the legislature wrapped up last Thursday is the fact that we have a supermajority in the General Assembly, but we still can't seem to close the primaries. So let's talk primaries today. What is the South Carolina GOP's official position on closing the primaries?
So it's in our platform. I think for probably at least the last 15, 16 years, in addition to several resolutions that have been passed by our state executive committee, as recently as within the last 6 months when we got the current bills in the legislature filed to do just that, basically endorsing those bills and calling for action on that. We've got a bill in the House and a bill in the Senate that were written by county party chairman or former county party chairman, former chairman Brandon Newton, who's a House member from Lancaster, and former party chairman from York, Wes Clymer, in the state Senate. Introduced identical bills this year, and this House Bill 3643, which has 55 co-sponsors on it, and Senate Bill 305, which has 12 co-sponsors out of 46 in the Senate, and which would do effectively exactly that. It would allow people in South Carolina to choose a party when they register to vote. But more importantly, for those who have not chosen a party that would be categorized, I guess, let's say independent, if and when they vote in our primary, so the other people of other parties, Democrat, whatever, could not vote in Republican primaries and vice versa. Independents could choose either one, but when they do, under this bill, they would automatically become registered to vote with that party.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it is an enrollment bill. And then from that point forward, you would have to actively change your registration to vote in any other party 45 days in advance. Moreover, though, it not only has the ability to control who can vote in our primary, the other thing that people often forget about is who can run in our primary. Currently, all that's required for somebody to go and decide to run in our primary is they pay a filing fee. And effectively, the party can do nothing about it under the law currently. We actually had a case, I would say, I think it was 6 years ago, down in the 1st Congressional District, where we had someone who literally had Bernie Sanders tattooed on his arm run in a Republican primary. And the executive committee had to just pass a formal resolution complaining about the fact and trying to bring it to the attention of the legislature again. This is ridiculous. When we go do the most important thing that we can do as a party, which is choose someone to represent us, why should we allow folks who support the other party to come do it for us? It's ridiculous, much less be able to run in our primary. And this bill would fix that. It would give the party the ability to control that, who can run. You have to have voted at least 2 out of the last 3 of our primaries to run, unless you get a waiver from the state executive committee. And of course, you have to be registered with our party. Again, the system we've got now, Joey, it was designed by Democrats, 60 years ago? It's basically ancient election law. Back in the days when everybody was a Democrat, so they didn't register by party, because if everybody's in the same party, why make people register by party?
Yeah.
And we grew up under that system. But now we've outpaced them with a majority party, and it's time for us to fix that law and give us control not only over who votes in our primary, but who can run in our primary.
Yep. On our guest line today, Chairman of the South Carolina Republican Party, Drew McKissick. Okay, so the obvious question here, Mr. Chairman, is you said there are 55 sponsors in the House. Why can't we get this passed then?
So the main thing we're waiting for right now in either chamber, and by the way, I'll stop here and say this is the first time that we've had companion bills in both chambers. It's always been the House previously. We've never got anywhere in the Senate. This year we've actually got a bill in the Senate with 12 co-sponsors. So this gives us the ability to play either chamber against the other. So in other words, whichever chamber will give us a hearing on this bill first, which would be, in the Judiciary Committee of the House or the Judiciary Committee of the Senate, then that's going to put enormous pressure on the other chamber to do that, because, previously it had just been stalled. If you're asking for why, I think the biggest reason, quite frankly, is what's the phrase, devil you know versus devil you don't know.
Yeah.
We've got, obviously the folks in the legislature have been elected under the present system, and they're just not quite sure, in some cases, how anything different would work. So the natural inclination is just not to do anything. So we have to create more, of a intensity here, the need to actually get something done. But the first thing to do is to actually get a hearing. If you haven't done it yet, first thing I would say, please reach out and contact those in the House and the Senate who have sponsored the bill and thank them for it.
Yeah.
Please let them know we appreciate it, and you want them to push to get a hearing. If your members are not on the bill, ask them to get on the bill. Again, that's House Bill 3643, Senate Bill 305. But we have to get a hearing. We get a hearing in the House of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and that's going to create a lot of intensity and momentum and pressure on the other side to do the same thing, or the other chamber.
Yeah, yeah. Is this a priority of the state party? I mean, is this something that you are
Correct.
actively lobbying for?
Absolutely. Well, that's how we got 55 co-sponsors in the House and 12 in the Senate. We've never had that much support. This is the most support we've ever had. The problem is, though, the next step is not just getting people to sponsor, but to actually get a hearing.
Yeah.
So, again, we've never had this much support. That's great. We've never had two bills before. That's great. Next step, though, we have to get a hearing. The good thing is, though, the legislature's in the middle of a 2-year session. So, In other words, those bills don't die. That support does not go away. And when they come back in January, essentially those bills are kind of at the front of the line because the other stuff has been done.
Yep.
So in the meantime, in the intervening months, what we need to do is contact our House and Senate members, tell them, contact the Judiciary Committee chairman. We need to get this thing to get a hearing. The party deserves to have a hearing. Even if y'all aren't going to vote for it, we deserve to have a hearing. Because as soon as we get a hearing, that's going to put pressure on the other chamber to do the same thing. That'll create momentum.
Yep. So call your state House member, call your state senator, ask them to support this bill and to be ready when they get back into session in January to go to work on this. Drew McKissick, is always a pleasure. Appreciate your time today, and we'll catch up with you again next week.
Yes, sir. Thank you, now. Have a good one.
That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.